Hi, I'm Jared, and I was a Spiritus missionary on teams 3, 4, and 5. Now I'm a high school science teacher in Sefner, Florida. I want to talk to you today a little bit about faith and science. So I know that a lot of people seem to think that there's this big contradiction between those two things. That like what religion teaches on the one hand and what science says on the other just can't come together. And maybe you see that on the news media, maybe you hear about it at school, maybe from your classmates or even your teachers. This idea that religion and science have such a big contradiction that they can just never see eye to eye. And I get that. When I was younger, I grew up going to a church that took the Bible very literally. And of course, as Catholics, we need to take the Bible seriously, but we also need to understand what the Bible says in context. But this non-Catholic church I went to when I was younger really kind of had a different take on it. And I remember in youth group just hearing about some of the things that science talks about and just the way that it was presented as if it was completely ridiculous because it didn't fit into the way that church understood the Bible. And one of those things was, for example, evolution. And that was hard for me to be somebody in middle school and high school who really, really loved science, but also wanted to take my faith really seriously, to see that there seemed to be this really big contradiction between the two. And it really wasn't challenged for me until I got to college. I took a paleontology class my freshman year of college, and the professor wasn't really somebody who had a strong faith, but he was married to a Catholic, and being in the Bible Belt, it was something he knew he had to talk about. So on the very first day of class, in front of a bunch of college freshmen, he would hold up this stack of papers that he'd printed out and he'd say, "Hey, does anybody know what this is?" And of course, nobody did. But he explained what it was a printout of something written by the Pope in 1950, a document called Humani Generis, where the Pope at the time was talking about new science, including evolution, and saying that, you know, we as Catholics can actually look at this and say we can believe this because it doesn't contradict our faith. And as science develops and as we learn more, we're going to follow it really closely because the church is interested in what science has to say. That was really a revelation to me to realize that, hey, the Pope even said that Catholics are allowed to believe in this. We're allowed to believe in science and the things that science teaches. And in fact, like in biology class, we all learn about Mendel and his pea plants, but how many people know that he was an Augustinian friar? How many people realize when they hear about the Catholic Church and Galileo that what Galileo was talking about was actually a theory that had been developed by a Catholic canon, Nicholas Copernicus? How many people realize that the Big Bang Theory, that's another scientific theory that sometimes people think is not compatible with their faith, that was actually developed and invented by a Catholic priest. So there are so many things that the Catholic Church has actually given the scientific world. And that's just a cool thing for me as a science teacher, that there's not a contradiction there. And in fact, what the church teaches us is that whether we're looking for truth through scientific discoveries or in our Bible looking for truth and in our faith, we're looking for the same thing, because ultimately truth isn't really a thing, it's a person. Jesus even says it in John chapter 14. He says, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." So in the end, we're all looking for truth. We're all looking for Jesus. And if you are one of those people who's having a hard time seeing why faith might be something to be open to because you don't see how it can fit in with science, or if you're somebody who's really strong in your faith and you don't understand, you're hesitant to trust science because you don't see how it can fit with faith, hey, take that step. Be willing to trust what the church says and what Jesus says, that in the end, like, truth is truth and it's not going to contradict itself. Scientific truth that helps us cure diseases or explore outer space, or the truths that we learn from our faith that help us find freedom from sin and shame, hey, that's all truth and it all leads to freedom. And Jesus says that too. So I'd encourage you to just trust and take that step and realize that, Jesus is telling the truth when he says the truth will set you free.